Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to MKTV. We are on episode 4 now with an absolute legend, both in the gaming world and the Aussie world. Now, you may know him from Vanguard, Rainbow Six Siege, Scrublands, and a few other things that he's been in. Mate, Marty, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here chatting with you.
Hell yeah. Congrats on being the first Aussie I'm going to be interviewing, by the way.
Am I really?
Yeah, you're the first Aussie. No other Aussie has said yes to me yet. Which is,
Okay.
I've got more Americans than Aussies.
Wow. Well, yeah, they're making a mistake.
I think I have.
Or they're just taking their time.
They are, yeah. I think I have 20 interviews from now until February, and you're the only Aussie in that list.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh well. I'm glad. Super happy to be here.
So in Australia, where are you based again?
I'm on the Mornington Peninsula in Victoria.
Yeah.
Got a place down here which I love, and it's been my little haven from Los Angeles for the last few years.
Hell yeah. I will say, I didn't notice this, but I don't play Rainbow Six Siege myself, but my little brother does. And I actually went in his room the other day, and you won't believe who he was using. I had a bit of a laugh.
Hopefully Mozzie.
He was using Mozzie. I remember asking him about it, because he doesn't know I was interviewing you. And I was like, oh, is that your favorite? He goes, no, it's my second, but I really like him. And I said, well, I've got a surprise for you. Just coming in. Yeah.
It's he's a great character. He's a great character.
I wanted to know, with Mozzie, you worked with another actor when the DLC came out, and I wanted to know if you knew that she also worked on Ocean Girls back in '97.
Was that Rona?
Mm-hmm. She worked on that show.
Ocean Girl.
Yeah.
No, Rona's become a very, very dear friend of mine. She'd actually probably love to have a chat with you. She's become we sort of met on social media after Siege came out, and she's become, like, I would consider her a very, very dear friend. She's come down to visit me here before, and we've had a lot of great adventures. I've hung out with her in LA. I haven't seen her in Canada yet. She's based in Canada, but she's an absolute legend.
Yeah, when I was doing my research, I saw that you were both in Ocean Girls, and you both did episodes in '97, and I thought that's a pretty cool connection.
Yeah, wow. We would have probably been in the same season. I think I was season 3. I think it was season 3. That was like my first TV role ever. But I didn't know Rhonda was in it. I'll have to ask her about that.
Yeah, I was gonna. The connection was really cool. Like, working in a show so long ago and then being in a video game together as like a DLC, like, that's a pretty cool coincidence, if you ask me.
It is, yeah. I really had no idea. I know she'd done a lot of Aussie TV back in the day, but yeah, I didn't know she was in Ocean Girl. That was a fun job.
You learn something new every day.
You do.
Isn't it, a few years later, you also did Neighbours, a couple episodes of that as well?
Yep, I did. So Ocean Girl, I think, was my first TV thing. I did that when I was supposed to be doing my Year 12 exams. And I was like, I don't care about the exams. I just want to work on a show. So I did that for, I think it was maybe 6 weeks or something. And then the following year, actually, I finished school, and that's when I sort of started pursuing acting a bit more seriously, and got my first. I think the first thing I did was a featured extra role on Neighbours in this pizza eating competition with Toadie, and I lost. Toadie and another guy called Tiny, and then I had like my first speaking part, which was playing a little busker, street kid, rat bag. I stole Dr. Carl's prescription pad to go and sort myself out. It was funny.
I feel like when it comes to Aussies and acting, I feel like it's either Home and Away or Neighbours. You have to go in one of them, and you come out and you just start your career from that. I feel like it's just an Aussie thing, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done Home and Away. I've read for it a few times. I've read for some cool characters on it, and I'd actually love to do a little stint on Home and Away. Get to spend some time in Sydney. What could be better?
Moving on from that, I kind of wanted to go to your Vanguard gameplay, because obviously you play an Aussie. I got to ask about it as an Aussie.
Of course.
What I know, Vanguard, before Vanguard, you had a small part in Infinite Warfare, I believe.
Yep.
which was your first Call of Duty role, and I'd love to know what that was like. Your
Yes,
part in that.
that was it was different. I'd done quite a lot of voiceover work in Australia in commercials. Um, and I still have the same agent, a fantastic agent, at Innovative in LA. And she was like, just be patient. I hadn't booked anything for the first, I don't know, however long I was with her, year or so. And she said, just be patient. It'll come. And that was, I think, the second job I booked. I think the first one I did was for like Marlboro cigarettes or something. And the next one was that job. So that was super fun. I didn't know anything about that world. I didn't know what battle chatter was, which is the screaming that you do when you're, in a fight in the game. And it was I think it was a nice introduction for me into video game acting. It was a small role, but yeah, heaps of fun and great to work on such a big project.
I know, and now look at you. You moved on to Vanguard, which was even bigger. Lead role, Aussie, demolitions expert.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved. Actually, just played Vanguard because I didn't. I love CODs for the campaign, but I never
Yes.
played Vanguard. I never did. So in the last week, I've played Vanguard just to know everything before I go to this interview. And I love
Yeah.
the scene
Did you
when you're.
enjoy it?
I actually did. Vanguard was really good. You and Derek Phillips' performance was really nice as well. I did interview him a little while ago.
I saw it. I saw a
Yeah,
snippet of that. Yeah.
giving him crap because he didn't come to Australia yet.
I
I
know.
know you give him a little bit of grief over it.
I try to. I try to.
Get him to Australia, but yeah, I love
Yeah.
the performances from everyone in Vanguard. Like it was really good. And the scene when you're in the cell and you decide to go talk to the guards and the big punch out scene, that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But
The hero moment.
I wanted to know when it comes to doing that was mocap, right? I'm pretty sure it was.
It was, yeah. Well, they call it, sometimes they call it mocap, sometimes they call it PCAP, which is motion capture and performance capture, and they were calling that PCAP, which I think is a little bit more focused, from my understanding of it, on the actual performance. So, you've got more facial recognition, and whereas motion can just be the stuff, I guess, that the stuntmen would do. They might do a lot of just the physical stuff.
When it came to doing all of that, like, what was that whole experience like? Because I laughed a little bit. There was a few scenes I found really funny, and I'd love to know, like, how was that whole experience like? Some funny scenes you may have encountered, like, give us all the information, mate. I'd love to hear about this.
Yeah, for sure. That was the second real stint I'd done on performance capture. The first one was for Rainbow Six. They had a cinematic trailer for the I think it was 2020 Invitational, I think. And I'd spent 7 days up in Montreal on the volume there, kind of learning the ropes, which was a really good introduction. And then obviously got the Vanguard role, and it was bigger. It was a little bit, nerve wracking because we're in the middle of COVID, and you did not want to get COVID on that job. That we found out after that, after the shoot, that they had understudies essentially, who were waiting in the parking lot every single day, and
Derek was telling me about this. You had your list, and it had all your replacements at the bottom. So if one
yeah.
of you got COVID, you were out. Next one was in.
Exactly. And we didn't know it. There was another Aussie actor, who was, I guess my replacement. I won't say his name, but he's a fantastic dude. He's done some really, really good video game work.
Oh,
Yeah, he's incredible. He's a really, really good guy. And I kept seeing his name on there, and I'm like, what's this guy's? Why is he on the call sheet? I've never seen him. There's been no mention of him. And it wasn't until afterwards that we found out, yeah, if anyone got it, we were out the door, and then someone else would come in because of the limitations and restrictions during COVID, they couldn't afford to miss a day's shoot. They really couldn't take any chances. So that was interesting. And then, our director, JB Blank's a veteran voiceover actor. He's incredible. He's incredibly talented. So it was a real buzz working with him. And then we had Laura Bailey, I think anyone who's into the gaming world knows who Laura is. She's a bit of a juggernaut. And then Chike, um, who's another amazing actor who spent a lot of time out here on La Brea. And then Derek and myself, and then there was a bunch of other sort of, I guess, more supporting roles who were incredible, like James Frayne from True Blood, who was uh, hilarious. He was basically like a Basil Fawlty the whole time when we weren't shooting. Just, yeah, had me in stitches. But yeah, look, there was an amazing cast, so it was a real buzz to get to work with, actors of that caliber. Dominic Monaghan from Lord of the Rings and Lost was there, so I got to kick the shit out of his character, which was which is a lot of fun. He played this nasty little Nazi character.
Because
Um,
you did work with a lot of incredible actors. Like when you go check out the IMDb, there are so many great names there. And I'd love
yeah,
to know, was there any cut content from that game that you wish was included? Or was it all just set out and like all of it was included?
from memory, the majority of what we did, pretty much everything, was in there. When you're working in games, they're so incredibly specific. They're so carefully written that we had incredible writers on that project, and um, they're so careful with how they map those things out. Um, it was nice. They were also, I wasn't sure if they would be, but they were very open to sort of collaborate, especially with my character on the Australian vernacular. And they'd always ask me, if a certain line sounded right, and if it didn't, we'd talk it through and find a way to make it work or change it. But no, for the most part, everything that was in there was, uh, yeah, released how it was written. They had a very clear vision of what they wanted.
I did love the lines. I mean, I feel like I was expecting some words when you see an Aussie character. I feel like Dunny is always included when it comes to the characters. And
Yeah.
when it came to you, saying, "Oh, this line doesn't sound right," how much did you actually change, or was there much that you changed, or was the lines pretty good from the get go?
It was pretty solid. There were little things here and there, and look, some of them just may have been things that I would have personally said differently. Um, but yeah, look, there was minor. It was minor. There were minor adjustments. It was very well written. There was a lot of time that had gone into it. But yeah, as I said, if there was anything that I'm like, you wouldn't say this. They were like, cool, change it.
Just get rid of it.
They really wanted to honor. They really wanted to honor the character and the character's vernacular.
When it came to Lucas Ricks, your character in Vanguard, are there any traits that you relate to in the character?
Yes. Yeah, there are. There are. I think um, he was a bit against authority and being told what to do.
Mate, he just went. I don't know if it was. I don't know what scene it was, but I remember they ripped the Australian flag off, and I remember watching. I'm like, oh, that's a bad move with all these guys around here. Next minute, bang! Just
Oh,
was
yeah,
that? Did you get to do motion capture for that?
that scene, I can't remember if I did that scene. I remember Stunty's in for one. I might have done that one. I remember the scene with the fight scene that Chike and I had. We started it, and then Stunty's moved in for the more aggressive stuff. Um, I'm always happy doing my own fight scenes, but at the same time, in certain circumstances, you're like, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to lose. I don't want to. I
Yep.
don't want to lose the rest of the job from getting a broken nose or something. But I think that one. I think that one we did. I think I did that one. Yeah, that was with James Frayne.
But yeah, going back to what character traits you relate to, just are you a fan of
I,
Lemingtons? I gotta ask.
yeah, I do like Lamingtons. I like them when they've got jam in the middle. I don't. I
Oh,
don't love them when they're just like sponge cake with dipped in chocolate with the coconut. I want that layer of jam, and the thicker the better. For any Americans watching, that's jelly, like raspberry jelly. So yeah, I am a fan of Lamingtons. I think the rebelliousness is something I can relate to. I have never really followed a structured way of living, which fortunately my parents supported. They just wanted me to be happy and do what I loved, and they both worked in the industry, so they understood it. But some of my extended family understand as well. Some of them don't. I think it's difficult for people who lead very structured lives to understand what it's like to be an artist and have that calling, and that there is no other option of what you're going to do. You just have to do it. And I think Lucas, in his own way, had a path that he wanted to take, and he was going to do it. And I think that's what made him special. That's why he became part of this elite team, essentially, of assassins. Uh, so yeah, I think that rebellious streak is something he had. Yeah. So yeah, look, there definitely were. I think his dry sense of humor. I didn't feel like I had to do any work with a lot of his cheeky comments, and yeah, he's great
Well,
character.
because I love the friend group in Vanguard. Like at the start, you get introduced and they're playing cards, absolutely banter off. One guy's sleeping. I swear he was sleeping at the start there on
Yeah,
the
yeah.
left, and it's just a great introduction to the characters. And it's just I feel like it was nailed really well when it came to is an Australian lead, which is also my next question: is how does it feel to be? I think one of the first Australian lead characters in Call of Duty. If I recall.
I'm not sure. It was great. It was great. I've been at this a long time, and I've had ups and downs in my career, and uh, times when I'm working and times when I'm not, like any actor does. And it definitely felt like a little bit of a breakthrough, you know.
hmm
Um, so that was nice. It
But
was nice to walk on set with actors who I really admire, and get to play with them.
trust me, there is a few people on that list that I would be awesome to interview on Vanguard. Some of the experiences that everyone's in,
Yeah,
wow. But we
yeah.
start with the best. When it came to Call of Duty Mobile, I've always wanted to know when your character is in that, do they give you a call and say, hey, do you want to be in Call of Duty Mobile? Do you have to do any lines for it? Like, how does that work when you're in a game and then you're in a mobile game?
Yeah, so the primary job was Vanguard, the campaign, and then they approached my agent saying they'd like to put the character in Warzone. It's probably an option on my contract. I can't remember exactly. Uh, and then there was COD Zombies, so that was another component of it. And then I think the last one was COD Mobile. And yeah, I go in and do that. That was more. That wasn't any motion capture. You go into a voiceover booth and lay down any kind of dialogue that they want, and battle chatter, getting set on fire, all the crazy stuff that you have to do in voice acting. So yeah, I think it's just an extra phone call and a couple of extra bookings. But that
Mate,
was that was a lot of fun. Yeah,
Call of
COD mode.
Duty,
Right.
Call of Duty, the campaign, multiplayer, zombies, Warzone, and the mobile game. I don't think you could get any better than that. That's the five.
It's
All
a good
five.
stack.
Yeah,
It's a
good
good stack.
stack. Good
Yeah,
stack. Did you play the zombies on Vanguard at all?
I did. I did. I played it a little bit. I played with this Twitch streamer called The Grouse, who's a friend of mine and very good at games, and he loves zombies, COD zombies. So yeah, we ran a couple. I didn't like it as much as the Cold War one that I played. I think it was maybe 2 seasons before that. That was like the first time I'd ever played COD Zombies, and I loved that. But I just think I probably didn't put in enough time. I was obsessed with Warzone after Vanguard came out, and I was like, Warzone, Warzone, Warzone.
Warzone, yeah, I think everybody had a Warzone phase. I think just months
Yeah,
of Warzone. But have you actually played the other Call of Duty games at all? Like,
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I think since Infinite Warfare, I've played all of the campaigns. I don't play multiplayer. For anyone watching, I stream on Twitch. So that's why I talk about playing a lot of video games. I didn't play games for years until I started streaming on Twitch. I did when I was little, and now I love it. It's can combine work with playing video games. It's quite amazing. But yeah, I do, and I've gone back and played some of the older ones. My stream will often gift me games and that they want to see me play. So yeah, I did Infinite Warfare recently. It took me a few years, but I got there.
It's funny you mentioned work and games because when it comes to interviewing, my research is literally playing games and watching TV. Like, obviously, I'll get my questions at the start, but once I do that, it is straight to the game, straight to the movies. And it's
Yeah.
funny, for the last week, all I've done is play Vanguard to prepare for this, and it's like,
Oh, good.
you couldn't get any better than that. I feel like you could
Yeah.
not get any better than
It's,
that.
it really is. It really is pretty great. That's one of my favorite things, when I book a film is if it's a genre or a period, I'll just sit down and start watching every movie in that genre just to get in the headspace. I did a World War One film a few years ago, and I just started watching every World War One film that I could find. And for me, I couldn't think of anything I'd rather do.
I actually was going to watch that, but I ran out of time. But it is what I'm watching this afternoon. I'm watching
It's a
it this
great,
afternoon.
great movie. That was the first lead in a feature I'd had in Australia, and was really one of the best experiences I've had. Brutal, brutal,
Ooh,
hardest film I've ever had to shoot. But yeah, our directors Adrian Power and Johan Earl. I don't know how they even figured they could pull that thing off. Johan was an actual explosives expert and an armorer, as well as being a director and an actor. And he rigged up a farm was it Orange or Dubbo? I think it was Dubbo, with more explosives than I've ever seen in my life.
wow.
It was amazing. All the explosions you see when you watch it are real, and I've never had an experience like that.
Like a Christopher Nolan experience, just everything real, no CGI. Like,
Oh yeah, no, that was real. I think that there ended up being a bit of CGI in building some of the scenes where there were heaps of soldiers, rushing the Western Front. But no, that all the explosives were as real as they get.
this is kind of a 2-in-1, but with you now playing video games and being in the industry for a while, is there a franchise, both in live action and in video games, that you'd like to be a part of?
Yeah, plenty. I've just done one, which I unfortunately can't talk about yet,
Damn it.
which will come out in the next year or two. Which I know
How big are we talking here?
is such a treat, massive. It's I'm really really so proud that I got to be a part of it. But as I said, can't talk about it. Sorry about that. I should have just not said anything.
I don't know. It's
But
like a
then,
cliffhanger.
yeah, I also
Video
there you go.
games. Is there a video game franchise that you'd like to be a part of?
Yeah, I'd love to do something in a game like The Last of Us. I was actually thinking about this the other day. There's a company called Supermassive Games who make all these incredible horror games.
Is that the Dark Pictures? The Dark Pictures
Yeah,
games? Oh
Dark
my
Pictures
god.
Anthology.
I love those games. I've played all of them. Sorry to cut you off. No, I
Yeah,
swear no one
just
mentions this.
no, that's absolutely fine. They're some of the greatest gaming experiences I've ever had. I love them so much, and I think I've really enjoyed what I've done with the first-person shooters. Campaign mode in Vanguard obviously was amazing. I would really love to do a narrative-based game, like something like The Last of Us, where the story really is about the characters. A lot of people who played Vanguard, they just played multiplayer. They see your face running around screaming, C4 detonated and shit like that. But I'd love to be a part of a narrative-based game where it's the characters that you spend all your time with. So yeah, we'll see. Hopefully.
When it comes to The Last of Us, would you rather be in the video game or the live action TV show?
I mean, I think either one would be pretty good, to be
I
honest.
feel like either one you've worked
It's
in.
a different, yeah, it's a different experience. The two different styles of acting. The video games are a lot more controlled. You're inside a volume. You're warm. There's food nearby. Anything on TV, often you're outside. You're in the elements. It can be a lot more challenging in that respect. But either one, I mean, I'd love to do the TV show. I loved season 1 of Last of Us. I thought it was amazing.
I mean, I feel
But we'll
like
see.
you never know.
Fantasies about these things.
part 3 of The Last of Us and you're in it all of a sudden. We know you manifested it right here. You know, I mean, either way,
There you go.
if you're working in the game, you're working with great actors like Troy Baker, or if you go on the live action, Pedro Pascal, you win either way. Like either one, you win.
You're winning. You're winning. You're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Laura Bailey was in from Vanguard was in Last of Us Part 2. She played Abby, and the, the character was amazing. I've never had a film or TV show really take me from hating a character to being the character and loving the character more than anything and feeling empathy and then kind of hating the character again. And the way that the storytellers took the audience or the gamers on a ride with that was quite extraordinary. But just speaking to what you were saying about having crazy things happen in a cliffhanger of a game, I think she had an amazing experience with that. The gamers went crazy when her character was introduced. It was like nothing I've ever heard about before. So I think it can be good and bad, but yeah, I'd enjoy it. Sure.
Still speaking about video games, but moving on from that, when it came to your Rainbow Six Siege character, Mozzie, I'd love to know,
Yeah.
did you get to add your own interpretation to it, or was it kind of just all laid out for you?
That one, I didn't know that was a video game when I auditioned for it.
Oh, wow.
I was given a script. A lot of great Australian actors. When I did the audition, a lot of great Australian actors were there. You go in every 15 minutes, they'll take a new actor in and everyone will read. And I mean, the cream of the crop were in there. It was incredible. It wasn't that I didn't think I'd get that role. I'm just like, there's some stiff competition for this one. But that being said, there's some incredibly talented people. And I think this is something that you learn over the years is it's not about anyone's better than anyone else. It's do you suit the role? And Mozzie was a character. The second I read that, I'm like, I'm this guy. This is me. I didn't have to do a big characterization. I just felt so connected to the character and I loved him instantly. I'm like, I love this guy. He's just a little cheeky little smart ass. And it reminded me of me when I was in high school. I was very short before year 10 and having a sharp mouth was what kind of kept me alive at the station in the morning. I used to get a pretty rough train line to school and you just had to be real quick with your mouth.
Isn't Mozzie like 5'4", I think? Like something around there?
Yeah, he's 5'4" and just a sharp talker. He's always got a funny thing to say. So I could relate to that.
I'd assume this, but do you use Mozzie as your operator all the time?
Always.
Yeah.
Always. Occasionally I'll deviate, but for the most part, it's always Mozzie. It's got to be.
I feel like you have to. If you have an operator in the game, you're picking your operator.
You got to. I've got every skin for his weapons. I've got every costume that he has. I don't know, what do you call it? Not a costume. I call it costumes.
Skins?
No, yeah, there's another word.
Yeah, DLC. I don't know.
But anyway, yeah, I've got all of his outfits. I've got them all. I did the same thing with Riggs in Vanguard. I bought every single cosmetic that he had.
I feel like you'd have to. Honestly, if it's there, you gotta have it.
You got to drip him out. Do
you still troll people in Rainbow Six Siege? Because I know you had a video a couple of years back trolling Mozzie fanboys, as you call it.
A little bit, yeah. It can be dicey because when people are streaming, no one knows who they are. Or when they're gaming and they're on the mic, no one knows who they are, so they can say some pretty nasty things. So I've been hit and miss. I think I've probably been about 85 to 90%. I've had really good people that I've met in game while I've been streaming. And then I've had some real trolls who have said some horrendous things. So you got to quickly mute them because you don't want that stuff going out to the world. Because I'm streaming, everyone's watching it.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to end up on like the Twitch compilations of when incidents happen like that.
No, we try and avoid that.
When it comes to you being in a game, obviously your appearance is kind of there and your voice is there. And I don't know if it's you, but when I watch myself in a show, I always look away, and I'd love to know, like, when you watch do you watch your own stuff that you're in?
I do, yeah.
Do you ever
Yeah.
do you ever just look at it, kind of look away sometimes because we are our biggest, critics of ourselves.
Of
So,
course. Why do you think so many actors in Hollywood become tragic surgery cases?
oh,
It's yeah. I mean, you see everything, especially with film. You see yourself on a big screen, and you're either like, oh yeah, I'm looking all right there, or you're like, oh, I want to punch myself in the face.
that's pretty. Yeah.
And,
Do you get the
you know,
same effect when you're in a video game, or is it just
yeah,
yeah?
same thing,
You hear your
same thing.
voice and you're like, oh, do I sound like that?
Yeah, I think it's look. I think, and I'm very conscious. I don't sit there and watch my stuff over and over again. I'll usually watch it once and then never watch it again. But I do personally, for me, I think it's important that I watch it because I think I can learn and grow, and I learn which camera angles work for me and which ones don't. Uh, if I'm not in the shape that I want to be in, I go, okay, I need to go to the gym more and get more muscles, or whatever it may be. So I do think it's important to be aware of how I'm presenting on screen. I try not to. I take a quick snapshot and go, okay, change this, alter this, fix this. Speak slightly differently, project more, be clearer with your diction, like whatever it is. I think I learn a lot from watching it, but I usually only do it once and then try not to do it again because I've got really no interest in sitting there watching myself for that long.
Watch
Uh,
it once, see what you can improve for the next time, and that is it.
Yeah, but
That is it.
like you said, I used to have it with when I was a kid. I remember. Now I'm going to show my age, but we had answering machines. I guess there's voicemail now, but we used to have like a little mini fucking cassette that you'd put in a thing and press it, and Mum would let me do the answering machine message for the house, and I remember I'd hear it back, and in my mind I had like this really husky, deep voice. And then when I heard it, they'd be like, "Hi, thanks for calling the house. Please leave a message." And I'd be, it's
It's
horrible.
have you? I don't know if you've seen the meme. It was on Reddit. It was quite viral. It was this meme where when you hear yourself for the first time, and this guy sends a message acting like really tough and all extreme, and he watches it back, and he sounds like a kid, and it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what. A question actually about the Australian industry as a whole, because you mentioned before, obviously, when you go in for an audition and you don't get the role, you might think that you weren't good. But one of the things I wanted to say was during the filming of The Assembly, I did meet a casting director, and half the time, it's not because you weren't good. It's just like you were saying, it's just the preference of the person on the project. And
Yeah.
it's kind of a message to a lot of actors out there who are going in the industry is don't try and compare yourself to everyone else because you may not get the role, but it's not because you weren't good. Every
Ex-
director just has a preference. And it
Yeah.
may not be your path,
Exactly. I had a friend of mine in Los Angeles years ago, and she would always compare herself to a friend of hers who they both moved over, they were living together, uh, they were both, blonde and beautiful, they were both talented, but her friend was kind of getting a lot more work and a lot more opportunities, and she would always compare herself to her, and it used to drive me crazy because it was something that was stuck in her head of comparison, and it you just can't, if you think in friendships, not everyone you meet you click with. It's exactly the same. It's a chemistry. When people get close to getting a big TV role, I had to do one recently. You do a chemistry test with the other actors, and the director, filmmaker, whatever, producers will see the chemistry that you have with the person performing opposite you. And if sometimes there's just no chemistry and you can't do anything about that. Other times you get paired up with someone and it's electric, much like in friendships, pardon me, relationships. I shouldn't drink Coke Zero Sugar when I'm doing interviews. It makes me a bit burpy. Um, but, sometimes the chemistry is just not there and you can't do anything about it. It's not to say you're better or worse or that you didn't do a good job. It's just, it might not be what the filmmakers are looking for.
But going off from that,
Yeah.
with Australia as an industry, I wanted to know your thoughts as you have acted both in Australia and in LA and maybe other countries, I'm not sure. But Do you think Australia is getting worse or better when it comes to the opportunities that Australians can get? Because if you go on Reddit, you go on any kind of forum, a lot of actors say it's hard to get roles, outside of Australia, or even in Australia as general, because there's just not that many going around.
I think the industry's changed a lot since streaming services have come in. I think there's a lot more opportunities now. You used to have what Neighbours, Home and Away. There was like Blue Healers or for a time Heartbreak High, which is back now. But there'd be McLeod's Daughters. There'd be a handful of these sort of dramas or soap operas that you could do. But now with streaming services, there really are so many more opportunities. I've been auditioning way more in Australia than I have in Los Angeles.
Really?
Yeah, that being said, granted, Los Angeles is going through its third strike in a row. We're in a video game strike at the moment, but uh, I've found way more opportunities here over the last few years, which is why I've moved back for a little while. I'll be back here for probably about 6 months, I think. We'll see. Because there's just a lot more opportunity here at the moment. I think it's a smaller pool. I do feel like Australia's a little bit more cliquey when it comes to casting. They've always had their favourites. I think there's less people are less likely to take risks here for a variety of reasons, and I think they really do stick with quite a safe pool of actors, which is great when you're in that pool as an actor. It's not so good when you're not, and I've been on both sides of it from time to time, but I do think there's a lot of opportunities here, and I think we've got a really talented industry here. I'm I'm moving more into, making my own independent film because I love doing it. And the Australian government funding bodies have got lots of opportunities for aspiring filmmakers and TV producers. But there are a very specific set of sort of criteria that you need to, I guess, adhere to, or demonstrate that you're embracing, and that doesn't always work for every project, which I think can be very limiting. And I think that's where in the States, if you've got studio money, they don't. I know they still have their own criteria. But I really, that was something I made an independent film a couple of years ago. Something I loved about it was that it was privately financed and I had the ability to just make the film I wanted to make without kowtowing to what an industry says you need to do. A lot of which is, I think, very important, when it comes to things like diversity. But not every film's going to be diverse. And speaking personally, at certain times I've found that limiting and found it, sort of difficult to get the support that I want, government support, for projects that I want to make for that very reason. And I think any filmmakers out there will agree with that. Always delicate conversation to have. But yeah, it's that being said, there's a lot of work that's being generated here and really, really good work. Scrublands, a show I did a little while ago. It's just amazing. Like the team of people that were working on that were just exceptional. And I think they match the crews and the cast and creatives of anywhere in the world. So yeah, I'm really happy to be back here for a little while.
Well, your performance on Scrublands was really good, and for anyone who hasn't watched it, definitely give it a watch. It got me hooked in the first episode. Like I remember watching it, and without trying to spoil anything, I remember watching it the first 5 minutes. I'm like, I'm trying to figure out what this is about because I didn't read the description, and then all of a sudden, all shit goes loose, and it's like, holy crap! Like, and it got me hooked from that on.
Yeah, I mean, the source material was a fantastic book called Scrublands, and I think the writers did a really great job adapting it. I know a lot of time was put into that, and the cast was amazing. The director, Greg McLean, who did Wolf Creek's, unbelievably talented and so good. He's so good to work with. It's just so relaxed and chill and cool.
Did Wolf Creek?
He might be the coolest. Yeah, he might be one of the coolest people I've ever met. And I'm not sucking up to him. He's just cool. Ask anyone who knows him. He's just a cool motherfucker, you know. Um, but I thought they did a great job with it, and I was allowed to I mentioned to you before we started. I was allowed to drop a C bomb in there, which was great. Makes me feel Australian.
Yeah, you're gonna add that Australian like salt, just
You got a little sprinkle
yeah,
of Australiana.
yep.
But yeah, great cast. I had a smaller role in that. I was sort of just there to support the story,
Your
which was
flashback,
which was great.
your little flashbacks in the show,
Yep,
mate.
yep.
Out of all the sets that you've been on, what has been the most memorable to you?
Honestly, Ocean Girl probably.
Oh wow, classic '97.
Yeah, it was my first proper taste of TV. This is that I've worked on. It was my first proper taste of TV, and I remember walking through it all took place in this underground or under the water facility, much like the game Subnautica. And I remember walking around inside, seeing all the sets and props, and you felt like you were in there. But then you go and touch a wall, and you're like, "Oh, it's cardboard. This is so weird." And it really left a lasting impression on me. Just the incredible illusion that film can create to make you believe that it's real. You know.
It's crazy what sets can do to a production.
So that,
Are you on many sets where they have like made sets for what you're working on, like you were saying for Ocean Girls? Because it's crazy.
yeah, yeah, I've been on a few. I mean, Neighbours was they had a whole studio of all the different interiors of all the houses, and that was very strange walking through there. I was a very young actor, being like walking through the Robinsons' house and then walking through some other family's house, and this was a show that I used to watch when I was growing up. I'm like, I'm in all these houses, and you just walk through a doorway and you're in a
Wow.
complete other house. I did an I did a web series with a really good friend of mine, Ben Nicholas, a few years ago called Footballer Wants a Wife, and they build a lot. Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of it.
I
It's good.
do. I did see that. I did see that on your IMDb. I was trying to think of a question to ask about that, but I just couldn't think of
It's
anything.
from the crazy mind of Ben Nicholas. He's very funny. We were actually in Los Angeles and we're talking about the industry, and I think I was probably on one of my things. You got to make your own stuff. We were going to the gym. Next day he comes in. He's like, "Cool, I've got an outline for this show. It's a mixture of Love Island and the Footy Show or something." I'm like, "Okay, I'm not a big footy guy." And next day he's like, "All right, I've mapped out the." I mean, he's like no one I've ever met before. And cut to I don't know, 6, 7 months later, I'm fly back to Australia to do a short film about it for Trop Fest, which ended up, I don't know if it was a finalist, but it was like top 16 or something.
Oh wow.
And then about 6 months after that, he's like, "Yeah, cool. We've just got a grant from Screen Australia. We're making the web series." I'm like, dude, I mean, the guy's unbelievable. I don't know how he does it, but he does it. And yeah, then they got Dockland Studios and built a bunch of sets in there, and that was awesome. That was when Docklands was still pretty new. But it's great. I love getting lost in that fantasy.
When you mentioned funding and Screen Australia, I have noticed a lot of movies and shows recently are being funded, which is great because, like, for Australia, what I was saying before, funny how you're getting more work here than LA, also due to the strike. But I feel like it's great that Australia is funding all these
Yeah.
projects. Do you remember when they shut off the Harbour Bridge for the Fall Guy, and Ryan Gosling was on the Harbour Bridge, going doing his stunts?
Yeah.
That must have been expensive to shut
Yeah.
off for the day.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure, but I'm sure they had the money for it. No, the government funding bodies, I mean, they generate a lot of work for Australian creatives, and they do some great stuff.
Speaking of films, let's get into it. You've made quite a few short films, and you made a feature film that is now on Stan that I did watch a little bit of. Great work on that, by
Yep.
the way. And I'd love to know,
Thank
as with you doing short films and then going on to do a feature, what is the difference like from doing a short film to a feature? Because obviously there's a lot more work involved, more crew. Like, what was the transition like to go from a short film to a feature?
I think I went into it being pretty naive. Yeah, I grew up in the industry. My dad was a filmmaker, and I remember telling him years ago, after I'd made a couple of short films, yeah, I'm going to make a feature next year. And he just looked at me and he's like, okay. I'm like, fuck off, I will. And, if, but I really listened to what he said. He always had great advice when it came to that sort of thing. And I continued making short films, and I waited until I made a short film that I looked at and thought really held up, and if it was stretched out, it could make a feature. It looked like a feature. It sounded like a feature. I worked with incredible people on it. And then I decided to make the Dunes, and it was a big transition. And I didn't know exactly what I was getting myself into. I definitely knew that I could do it. I did it on absolute a shoestring. It, yeah, I had almost no budget for that film, and I was very fortunate. A lot of people came on and helped out and saved it. We had so many, camera issues and sound issues, and it took a long time to finish it. But I was committed to doing it, and it was a big learning curve, and it was a big transition, but I loved it. I was ready to do something bigger and figure out that beast, and I just can't wait to do it again. I
If
want
you
to have a little bit more money this time.
When it comes to you making short films, because you've made quite a few, as
Yeah.
someone who wants to make a short film this year, what is the biggest piece of advice you could give someone, like people who want to make their own shorts?
It sounds overly simple, but make it. I think it's so easy to strive for perfection and have this ideal of I want it to be this. And I think it's really easy to sort of sit on that ideal and almost have the process, because it's probably going to be bigger than what you may be capable of doing. That process of waiting almost become like a paralysis to the point where you don't end up doing anything. And I've seen it happen to so many people. I remember when I first got to LA, everyone's like, yeah, I'm going to make a film. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm like, okay, cool, 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 cool. And I get on board with a lot of them. And I carried a few films that I was involved in. And I realized afterwards that the people that I was working with didn't really do anything to contribute. It was like, I felt like dragging a dead weight. And the further along that I've got, I've realized collaborate with people who contribute, as opposed to people who talk. And if I was to say to you, if you were to say to me, I want to make a short film, what should I do? I'd be like, start writing it tomorrow. It doesn't have to be perfect. Don't be too critical of yourself. I've got a standard that I want to work at. I've realized that time may not permit me to have that marry my need to be creative. And so in the meantime, I'm going to make other things that may not be quite of the standard that I in an ideal world would like to be working at, but I've got things that I need to express, and I would rather have 10 shit films that some people like and some people don't than one amazing idea that never comes to fruition. To me, that's devastating.
There's Speaking of advice and what you were saying, there were three key pieces of advice that I hear a lot from people who make their own short films and are now doing features. And I'd love to know what you think of these three pieces of advice that I have been given. The first one is plan everything from the pre-production to the post-production. Plan everything down to the T. Do Plan everything. Number two is, this was kind of a saying that someone said in a previous interview, but it stinks from the head down. So if you're not having a good time, you're yelling, if you're like the lead person on the short film, if you're not being chill, everyone else is going to be on that high stress level. So if you're chill, you're having a good time, having a laugh, everyone else is having a great time on the production.
Yeah.
And number three is, don't try and pack a feature film into a short film. so many people try and do short films like a Vietnam, 19, like, they try and do all these crazy big budget things when their budget's here and what they're trying to do is like up here. So I'd love
Yeah.
to know what you think of those three pieces of advice.
I think they're all very good pieces of advice. I did the exact opposite with my first feature film. I didn't plan everything. I wrote it in 10. I decided I wanted to make it one day, approached a cinematographer to see if he'd shoot it for me for a very modest amount of money. It might not have been anything, I can't remember. Uh, and then I wrote it in 10 days, flew the key people back to Australia and just started shooting. And I knew with my skill set that if I got it in the can, I know what I'm like. I won't stop until it's finished. Did I know the whole process of post-production? Hell no. I didn't, I had an idea of it because I'd done it on short films, but on such a small scale. And I didn't know what things cost. And I just went, get it in the can and figure it out later, and I did that. And it was horrible. It was just a horrible experience because I didn't plan things out. So much went wrong, and I was, having to save it. That being said, though, that for me was that horrible journey was so rewarding, and I would never, ever, ever change that because I learned so much, and I think it really does teach me, like, plan everything out from the very, very start. I do think it's great advice. That being said, though, had I done that, the film would have never got made. I wouldn't have made it. I would have seen all of the obstacles, and what I was doing was completely unrealistic. It made no sense. I did a Kickstarter afterwards because I'm like, I can't finish this. I owe a shit ton of money on this and I can't finish it. So I had to do a Kickstarter and learn that whole beast, which was amazing and horrible, absolutely horrible. And just the particular experience I went through because it was so hard and so scary, and I didn't want to fail. So I think that number one piece of advice, it's great advice, but it's not going to be right for everybody. And sometimes you've just got to do it and be like, I'm just going to do this. There's a lot of people in the film industry who have mortgaged a house to make a film and been completely almost down and out to get it made. And then they get it made and it changes their life. So I think sometimes you got to take a risk in life. You can't be safe all the time. I would not be doing this career if I was being safe. You have plenty of time when you're not working, plenty of time where finances are low. Hopefully not for everyone, but I've definitely experienced that. And I haven't always felt safe in this career, but I love it and I believe in it. And for me, that's enough, and that's a path that I'm happy to take.
I feel
But
like
if you can plan it all out, do it. But if you want to make a film, just fucking do it however you can.
make a film.
I don't like, just make the fucking film. It's go out there and risk it being shit and risk it failing, but do it. Get it started. And that's my thoughts on that. And that's not for everyone. Not everyone can handle that level of anxiety.
You live and learn. You learn off your mistakes and you have fun while doing it. And one of the best things I was told, and you said it exactly yourself, is in this industry, you got to take a risk. That's someone I was talking to.
Look at what you're doing.
Mate,
you
I
set up a thing and you're interviewing people and you took a risk. You hit me up out of nowhere, but it was calculated. You clearly know what you're doing. You were incredibly respectful. Your email was personal. If you had not done that, we wouldn't be here talking,
True, yeah, you take risks, take calculated risks, and I do appreciate what you're saying. Every person that I reach out to and email, it's because I know of them. I admire them and I've watched them in things before. And that's how it works.
Yeah,
And
I made a short. Yeah, I made a short film in 2016, I think it was.
Wow.
And one of my all-time favorite Australian films is Two Hands, and the score for that and soundtrack, I think, is one of the greatest compliments to a movie in cinema history. I'm just obsessed with it. And the composer, Cesare Skubazewski, he, I was like, I want to work with this guy. I wanted to work with Robert Rodriguez, but he was busy. So I got Robert's co-director on Machete to edit my film. And Cesare came on board, and I just randomly hit him up. I said, dude, I'm probably shooting in the wind, big fan of your work. You know, he's won so many AFIs, it's not funny. And said, can I send you this film? I don't think I can probably afford you, but blah, blah, blah. And without getting into the, you know, the business side of it, he came on board and he supported me. And it was one of the greatest experiences I've had working with a creative that I did put on such a pedestal because of the caliber of work that he's done. And I, you know, I was insecure through the process because I just felt really lucky to be working with him under the circumstances that we were. And you know, when you work with someone good, they build you up. He kept saying, if you need any changes, you let me know. He was so good to work with and encouraging, and sort of nurtured out of me a creative voice in an area that I didn't know that I had any business having a creative voice in. And it was such a gift, you know. But had I not reached out to him, I never would have got that. And taking those risks is so important. And I've done it with other people who have gone, no, fuck off. I had an Australian actor who I approached for the Dunes. As I said, I had very limited money, and I thought he'd be fantastic for a role. And he was such an asshole. And I told him the budget, I told him what I was doing, and he's like, you pay bananas, you get monkeys. I was like, you prick. I've got some really, really amazing actors working on this fucking thing, and you flippantly say that because I don't have the budget to pay you what you want. Then you meet other people like Cesare who are just incredible, like more talented than you could ever hope for.
Wow.
And so encouraging. But you never get to have these experiences if you don't take those risks and back yourself and reach out. And that's also how you build an amazing community. Like the people who have sort of stuck with me through what's been a very challenging career in the arts, I treasure them. I fucking treasure them. And if they need me for something, I'll do everything I can to assist. And I'm so grateful to have made those connections. And to me, that's what, you know, building a good crew is. I watched my dad do it. After he died, I remember people coming up to me at his funeral and just telling me how much he helped them throughout their journey in the industry. And yeah, it's that, to me, that building that community is so important. And I'm very lucky that they're a small group, but a really, really tight group of creatives who we want to make stuff together, and we trust each other and we have each other's back. So, but that all came from taking risks and just getting out there and fucking doing it, whether it worked or not.
I relate to so much of what you just said. One thing I learned is the power of asking, because if you get a no, it is still an answer. That's the one thing I learned, and it comes true to this day. And some of the people that I've met early on, I still talk to them today, and we're still doing things because it's who you meet and make connections with, but it's also who you click with. Because like you were saying near the start, you know, there's kind of a pool of Aussie actors who get picked, but it also makes sense for the behind the scenes, like the production roles. Because I have noticed a lot of productions use the same people because they're good and they're friendly and they click with everyone.
Exactly. And there's a reason why that pool of actors keeps working. You know, it's not just about talent. Sometimes they've got a name and they can sell a project, but no one wants to work with people who are really difficult, and they want consistency and reliability and all those qualities. So yeah, that's point number one, I think, is definitely take the risk, plan what you can, but if you can't plan everything, just have a swing and do your best.
Moving on from this, because I just thought of something just then. You've been on Cameo for quite a while now. I think, 4 years I think you've been on Cameo for, 2020. Yep. And I would love to know, because you've had quite a few requests. Who do you get? Do you get asked to do your voice impressions on Cameo? I assume.
Yeah, I have. Usually, often people will say, I'm definitely most known for Mozzie from Rainbow Six Siege. So occasionally I'll have other characters that I've played. People will ask. Sometimes people just like want a nice message, but usually I think that they're people who are big Siege fans, and they'll say, "Oh, can you like throw in a line about a drone or whatever one of Mozzie's lines at the end?" Which I always try and do.
Do you get any like funny requests from people asking you to say a certain line in your voices, or?
Yeah, I've had a couple. I can't think of them off the top of my head. I had someone ask me to come to their wedding, and I think it might have been, I don't know if it was to marry them or something. And I was like,
I was about to say, surely you said yes until you said the marry part. I'm like,
yeah, that was. I was like, yeah, I don't know that that's appropriate.
would you go to someone's wedding, not obviously to marry them, but if they asked you to just be a guest, do you reckon you'd go?
If they paid me,
Imagine that, getting paid
it
to
would
go to
depend.
a wedding.
Yeah, if they paid me enough money, I probably would. But no, I look, I have been asked, and it wasn't someone that I knew personally, and I felt uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, who am I? You know, that I think that's like a bit of a little bit of a fantasy thing, which is completely understandable. You want people that you sort of, I guess, like to be around you, but I think under that circumstance, it would be the first time that you'd met someone. It's going to be a little bit awkward, and it's going to take away from, I think, the things that really matter, which is at times like those being around your family and your closest people. And I would never want to be a part of something that's overshadowing that incredibly intimate experience that you share with the closest people in your life. So that being said, if they paid me enough money, I'd go.
Imagine doing like a wedding speech and you include Mozzie in your wedding speech. Like,
Yeah. I mean, look, maybe I've heard Taylor Swift's rocked up at some weddings and sang a song. And I think that's unreal. You know,
is unreal.
yeah. So look, never say never, but I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm conflicted.
Speaking of Mozzie and Rainbow Six Siege, I know you do stream quite a bit of Rainbow Six Siege. I remember seeing a clip. Actually, back when I first emailed you, you walked out and you threw a C4 on the roof and you got the guy. And that was
Oh yeah.
that was a pretty good clip. And I'd love to know what got you into streaming.
So COVID hit. I had a series of events happen. I had to do like a shout out or something. I was doing a autograph signing with Ubisoft in Montreal with some of the other voice actors, and the marketing department said, "Oh, would you mind just saying some voice lines, and we'll put them on our Instagram to hype up this event that we're doing." It's a big tournament they do every year called the Invitational, which is amazing. And I was like, "Sure, great." So I did that and put it on my Instagram, and they shared it, and I got a lot of followers in the next couple of days. I think I got like 2,000-3,000 followers. And I wasn't much of a content creator, and I was like, that was actually quite fun. I'm going to do it again. And I did it again, and I got a lot of new followers. And for some reason, it was when TikTok was just sort of starting to kick off. I put the video on TikTok, and it was when the bushfire, I remember it was when the Australian bushfires were happening, and I went out to an event, and I woke up the next day, I was at a coffee shop, and I opened my TikTok, and the video had something like, I don't know, like 45 or 50,000 views.
Wow.
Overnight. And I'd never seen anything like this because I was used to Instagram, and I hadn't seen that kind of viral content go bananas, especially not with anything I'd ever done. And it got like 6,000 followers overnight.
Wow.
And I'm like, I'm famous. What's going on?
That's how it works. Like you get that viral video and you just...
I was like, what is this? Feels good.
Are
You
you
know?
at like a couple 100,000 now, I think, on TikTok?
Yeah, I think I'm like 250,000 or something.
Wow.
But, But that stopped, that growth stopped. But I remember the following day, I'm putting another one up, and I put another one up, and that got, I don't know, 75,000 views or something, and I got another 10,000 followers. It was bananas, and uh, I just said to myself, you need to. This was around the COVID time. You need to keep doing this
Mm.
until the growth stops. And so every day I'd start putting up videos, and I'd just do voice lines, different Mozzie lines, and that kind of morphed. And then COVID hit, and I was getting like a lot of traction on Instagram and TikTok and on YouTube. My follow account was growing, and then I had some people say to me, "You should stream, you should live stream, and we'll watch you." And I'm like, "Well, what are you talking about?" I didn't know what Twitch was. And they said, "Well, you play the game you're in, and we'll watch you, we'll pay you." I'm like, huh? What do you mean you'll pay me? They said, yeah, you like pay for subscription. We pay for subscriptions and things like that. And I did. It was a world I didn't understand, didn't know. And then Tim Phillips, who was the lead actor in the Dunes, he was he came over through COVID. We were making a short film, and in the evening, I'd got an Xbox, and I had I think it was Arkham Knights.
Oh, that's a good
And
game.
we were like, let's play some Batman. And I had TikTok, and I thought, oh, they said something about live streaming. Tim knew a little bit about it. His cousin had done it. And he goes, yeah, you just go live. And so I put my phone on a tripod and put on TikTok and went live of him and I having a beer and playing Arkham Knights. And people were throwing, I don't know, cherries and bananas and cowboy hats and shit at us.
You sound, no offense, that sounds so old. When you say that, it sounds like a slot machine.
Right?
It's I think roses and galaxies.
Roses.
There we go. There we go. No,
And
I think cherries and bananas goes way better.
Yeah, and I'm like, what is going on here? This is absurd. And then I remember we played for an hour, and I think we had 2 beers each or something. And then I went, all right, guys, thanks for hanging out. And I hung up, and then it said, you've earned $100.
Wow.
And I'm like, what is that? And so I'd do live streams on TikTok, and then I eventually set up Twitch on my Xbox, and I've been doing it for 4 years. I love it. It's a great way to
Congrats.
interact with the community and people who like your work, and it's a lot of fun, and it brings in a little bit of revenue, and it's been a really sort of complimentary thing to what I do, and it's also a creative outlet. I get a chance to sort of perform every day if I want to just jump online for an hour or two
Yeah.
and be silly.
There's nothing better than just sitting in your own house, playing a game, and hanging out with people, like people that know you, and just a cool experience.
It really is, and the thing I particularly love about it is I get to be myself, unapologetically myself. I don't rely on it financially to keep me afloat. It's something I do it because I enjoy it. I'm very grateful for any contributions that anyone gives to my stream. I love it, but it's not the be all, make it or break me, and so I don't feel it necessary to put up, because occasionally you'll get trolls that'll come in, or just people stepping out of line. I don't feel any need to, I don't know, appease them or put up with any shit. There's a ban button. It's one button, and if anyone's
Strike the
throwing,
hammer.
it's great. We call it a ban hammer, and if anyone's causing trouble or being unkind to anyone in there, ban hammer, gone. You don't think about it again. And for me, it's been a really nice contrast to, whether it's being on set or working a job or whatever you may do, where you need to sort of put up with some shit from time to time, and it's nice to have a little space where you can go and just have fun and just be yourself, And I mean, I try and hold myself to a pretty high standard, apart from the silly jokes that I make, in terms of caring for the community and being gracious. I have my moments. We all do, but. Yeah, it's great. I love it. Love it.
Well, look, you've answered all my questions really well. I'm out of questions. I don't got any more.
That's all good.
Mate, thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview with me. I've had an absolute blast. This has been
Oh,
great.
thank you. Me too. No, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
And I hope you had a great time with this as well.
I have.
Mate, well, thank you. And everybody watching, thank you for watching. Can't wait to get this out today. Have a good day, mate.
You too.